All right, this is our next one, 1970s. Nixon's now out. The unelected Gerald Ford is in. And so this is Gerald Ford and also Israel. I'm going to spend some time talking about Israel because this is where it really starts to play up, and it's a good point for it, okay? So, Ford, when in office, one of the first things he does is he goes on TV and he grants a full presidential pardon to Richard Nixon. And this blows everybody's mind. So what does that mean? That means you can get a hold of everybody else. And they do. Haldeman goes to jail and a lot of other people, but Nixon cannot be tried. And this is actually going to hurt Gerald Ford's political career because he seemed like he's a part of it. Okay? Now, Ford, he's not known for much. Famously, he's the first president ever to be spoofed on Saturday Night Live. Chevy Chase was him. And Ford fell down a lot, so Chevy Chase was constantly falling down. We've come to find in later life that Gerald Ford was a football college star at the University of Michigan, so he could have possibly suffered from concussions. This is before concussion protocol and things like that we have today. Now, one of the things Ford has to combat is the stagflation, this inflation. So Ford creates this kind of winning slogan, and it's called WIN. WIN stands for Whip Inflation Now. Okay? So he's wanting to kind of move inflation along, and we're going to try something different. All right? Now, I'm going to have to go back. and the whole purpose here is I've got to set up where this was and how Gerald Ford and the U.S. becomes involved. Not immediately. In 1948, after World War II, the nation of Israel was established. Israel is to be a country for Jews. And the whole purpose was to make sure that they could have this country and not be persecuted and kind of live in peace, okay? Now, in the 1960s, there is something called the Six-Day War. Guess how long it lasted? No, all right. Now, in 1967, Israel captured some territories. From Syria, they got an area called the Golan Heights. From Jordan, they're going to capture the West Bank and East Jerusalem. And lastly, from Egypt, they're going to get the famous Sinai Peninsula and the Gaza Strip. Now, what do Syria, Jordan, and Egypt have in common? They are Islamic countries. And Jerusalem and these areas are just as important to the Jews as they are to the Muslims. And so there's a lot of hard feelings about this, okay? Now, who do we actually feel has the right to do this in 67? We feel Israel has this right, okay? Flash forward a little bit here. In the 70s, there's an organization set up called the Palestinian Liberation Organization. Palestine is basically another little part of Jerusalem, but it's for the Muslims, okay? They actually go as far as killing 9 members of the Olympic team. The Arab captors are doing this, and this is going to disrupt the Olympics in 1972. So this is kind of chaotic. Now, in 1973, here we go, back to where we were. There was a Yom Kippur War. Now, Yom Kippur is a Jewish holiday, basically their New Year. And on this day, basically all the Arab countries around Israel are going to fight it. And we don't see this as being very good. We're actually going to denounce it. We're going to send supplies, etc., to make sure that all these things don't work. Now, at the end of the war, they basically come up with the idea that the Gaza Strip and the Golan Heights and all this will be shared, and in fact, the Palestinians and the Israelis fight a ton over these areas still today. So nothing's really been solved. Now, an organization made up of mainly Islamic countries is called OPEC. OPEC stands for Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, gas. And so if you look at the countries they have there, 90% of them, maybe excluding Venezuela and Ecuador, happen to be Muslim countries in the area we're talking about here. they decide we are going to punish the United States for their continued support of Israel because they don't even know Israel got over there and took this stuff from us and the Crusades and all these crazy things. So, and beginning in the 70s, in 73, they're going to announce an oil embargo on the U.S. Now, an embargo is where you stop selling completely with somebody. So, we have gas shortages, we have an energy crisis, all these things going on, and it's moving close into 1976, and this is going to be our next presidential election. So whoever's president needs to have an answer to OPEC's oil crises, how do we deal with this, and also the energy crisis at hand. All right, and we're going to move into that man. His name is Jimmy Carter.